Welcome to Witches and Yoga Pants, your cozy corner of the cosmos, where modern magic meets everyday life. We're here to explore magic, mindfulness, and personal growth with a grounded, no-fluff vibe. Whether you're into moon rituals, tarot spreads, or just trying to survive Mercury retrograde, you are in the right place. So get ready to disrupt some old patterns, explore what it means to reclaim your power, and remember who you really are. So pull up your yoga mat, light a candle, and let's get into it. Well, hello and welcome back. I'm really glad you're here. Today, I want to talk about something that's pretty well known, but I think that sometimes it gets forgotten as we move through our day-to-day, especially if you find that you struggle in relationships. And this is the idea of the 5 love languages. Now, if you've never heard of this concept before, the basic idea comes from the book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. The theory is that people tend to give and receive love in different ways. And when we understand the way we naturally express love and the way the people around us experience love, our relationships often become healthier, clearer, and more connected. This is a conversation about emotional connection, about communication and feeling seen, and about the moments where two people can love each other deeply and still somehow miss each other emotionally. Because honestly, I think that a lot of people walk around feeling unloved when the truth is love may actually be present. It's just not being expressed in the language that they naturally recognize. And that can happen in romantic relationships, friendships. It can happen between parents and children. It can happen in families. And honestly, it can even happen within our relationships with ourselves. So today I want to walk through the 5 love languages together, but I also want to talk about some of the deeper layers underneath them. Because this isn't really just about what's your love language. It's about learning how humans connect. And I think that matters, especially right now. Because we live in a world where people are more connected digitally than ever before. And yet so many people feel emotionally unseen. And sometimes the problem isn't that love is absent. The problem is the translation. Sometimes one person is speaking love through acts of service, while the other person is waiting for words of affirmation. Sometimes one person is giving gifts because that's how they learn to express care, while the other person just wants quality time. And both people walk away feeling disappointed. It's not because love wasn't there, just wasn't landing. I think that's important to understand. Before we jump in, there's something else to keep in mind, and that's that most people actually have a blend of several love languages. There's usually 1 or 2 that feel especially nourishing to us, but we're rarely just one thing. Also, I think this matters. Our love language can shift throughout different seasons of our lives. Someone who desperately needs words of affirmation after a difficult childhood might later on realize that what they actually crave in a healthy relationship is consistency and quality time. Someone who once valued gifts may later discover they're really longing for visible proof that someone was thinking of them. Our needs evolve just as we do. And I think sometimes we shame ourselves for that. We think, why do I need reassurance all of a sudden? Why does this matter so much to me? Why do I feel hurt when they don't notice these things? But emotionally, needs are not weakness. They're information. And honestly, this is one of the reasons I find human design so interesting in relationships too. Because when you begin to look at someone's energetic blueprint, you can often start understanding why certain relationship dynamics affect them so deeply. For example, people with an open or undefined will center often experience themes around worthiness, validation, and proving themselves. These are the people who may need a little bit more verbal reassurance or acknowledgement in relationships, not because they're too needy, but because they naturally experience and amplify themes connected to value and self-worth. And they experience it differently than someone with that center who's defined. Someone with a defined will center may naturally generate a more fixed internal sense of willpower and self-value, while somebody with that center open can feel more sensitive to whether they feel appreciated, chosen, or recognized. And you can imagine how that would affect something like love languages. Words of affirmation may land very differently for those 2 people. The same thing can happen with the G center, which in human design relates to identity, direction, and love. People with an open G center often experience themselves differently depending on the environment and the people they're around. They may deeply crave relationships where they feel accepted as they are, where they feel safe in being fully themselves. And for them, quality time and emotional presence may matter more because relationships can strongly shape their sense of identity and belonging. And then you have emotional openness. Someone with an undefined emotional solar plexus often feels and amplifies the emotional energy around them. Conflict may feel incredibly intense to them. Tension in relationship may linger in their nervous system long after the argument's over. So tone matters. Emotional safety matters. The energy underneath the words matter. So, as we look at this, you begin to realize that people simply experience their connection differently. So, let's talk about the 5 love languages themselves. The first one is words of affirmation. And this is the person who feels love through spoken or written words. Encouragement, appreciation, compliments, verbal affection, and reassurance. For someone with this love language, words carry enormous emotional weight. And I think this one gets misunderstood sometimes because people assume it means someone is needy or insecure. But really, many people with this love language simply experience language deeply. Words land in their nervous system. A thoughtful text matters to them. Being acknowledged matters to them. Feeling appreciated out loud matters to them. And honestly, this makes sense when you think about it. Words shape so much of our reality. They can wound us for years or they can heal us for years. I think many of us can still remember one sentence that someone said to us decades ago. It could be a criticism, an encouragement, one moment where somebody believed in us. Their words still linger. So, for someone whose primary love language is affirmation, silence can sometimes feel emotionally confusing. They may know logically that someone loves them, but if affection is never expressed verbally, it can feel difficult for them to fully receive it. And on the flip side, criticism can hit especially hard for them, especially if they already carry sensitivity around worthiness, validation, or being seen. The second love language is acts of service. This is the language of, let me help you. This is when you do something for someone that is taking something off their plate. When you notice something that would make things easier for them, and you just do it. For people with this love language, actions truly speak louder than words. And I think this language often develops in people who learned early in life that love looked like caretaking, responsibility, support, or reliability. These are often the people who notice what needs to be done before anyone asks. And sometimes they quietly carry far more than people realize, because acts of service people are often loving everyone constantly through invisible labor. And one thing I find really interesting about this love language is that it's deeply connected to feeling safe. Reliability feels loving to them. Follow through feels loving to them. Effort feels loving to them. Not because they're demanding perfection, but because consistent, supportive action creates trust in their nervous system. Honestly, I think a lot of people with this love language become exhausted because they keep loving others in the ways that never get returned to them. They help, they organize, they support, they anticipate everybody else's needs, and then secretly wonder why no one notices how much energy they're giving. There's another place in human design that can offer some interesting perspective here. Generators and manifesting generators often have more sustainable energy for doing, building, helping, and engaging consistently with life, while non-sacral beings like projectors, reflectors, and manifestors may need more spaciousness, more rest, and more intentional energy management inside relationships. A projector may deeply appreciate acts of service, but they might feel even more nourished by recognition, by feeling understood and appreciated and truly seen for who they are beyond what they do for others. Manifestors may feel love through support that still allows freedom and autonomy through relationships where they don't feel controlled or constantly managed. And reflectors often experience relationships deeply through emotional atmosphere and environment itself. The health of the dynamic matters tremendously to them. So even within the same love language, people may still experience connection differently depending on their energetic design. The third love language is receiving gifts. And I think this one gets unfairly judged sometimes. People hear gift giving and immediately assume materialism, but that's not usually what it's actually about. This love language is often about thoughtfulness, symbolism, the emotional meaning attached to something. It's the feeling of, you thought of me and I wasn't even there. A tiny object can mean everything to someone with this love language if it carries emotional intention. A flower picked on a walk, a book someone remembered you wanted to read, your favorite snack from the grocery store. The value usually isn't about the price. It's about being remembered, being considered, and being held in someone else's awareness even when you're apart. When you really look at it that way, it's actually incredibly emotional. This love language is often deeply tied to sentimental meaning and emotional symbolism. The fourth love language is quality time. And this one is about presence, not proximity, presence, because there is a difference. You can sit next to someone every night and still never really connect with them. People with this love language usually value focused attention, and it might look like conversation, shared experiences, undistracted time together, feeling emotionally engaged. I think this love language has become especially important in the age of phones and multitasking and constant distractions. Many people are physically present while emotionally somewhere else entirely. And quality time people feel that. They feel when someone is half listening. They feel when attention is divided. And what nourishes them most is genuine connection. That looks like eye contact, conversation, shared moments, feeling emotionally met. And I think this love language can sometimes reveal something important about our modern lives. Many people are starving for presence, to feel someone fully with them for even just a little while. It's super powerful. And again, I think human design can deepen this conversation too. Someone with that open G center we talked about earlier, they may especially value relationships where they feel deeply accepted and emotionally safe to be themselves. Quality time might not just feel enjoyable to them, it might feel grounding, like they can finally exhale into who they are. Projectors may especially value conversations where they feel recognized and truly understood. And someone with an undefined emotional solar plexus may be incredibly sensitive to the emotional quality of the time being spent together. They may notice tension, disconnection, irritation, or emotional withdrawal immediately, even if nothing is being said out loud. The fifth love language is physical touch. And this one isn't just about sexuality, even though some people assume that. This is about physical connection. It can be hugs, hand holding, a hand on the shoulder, physical closeness, comfort through touch. For many people, this touch regulates their nervous system. It creates safety, connection, and grounding. And I think this one is especially important to talk about because physical touch can carry completely different emotional meanings depending on someone's life experiences. For some people, touch feels deeply comforting and healing. And for others, touch may feel complicated because of trauma, conditioning, boundaries, or past experiences. And that's important to honor too. Love languages are not rules. They are tools for understanding. And I think sometimes people misuse this framework in relationships. They may say things like, well, my love language is physical touch, almost as a way to pressure someone else into meeting needs that they might not feel comfortable with. But healthy relationships still require consent, emotional safety, communication, and mutual care. Now, one thing I find fascinating about all of this is that people often give love in the language that they most want to receive. Think about that for a minute. The person constantly helping everyone may secretly want support. The person always complimenting others may deeply crave encouragement. The person giving thoughtful gifts may want to feel remembered. The person creating quality time may be longing for presence. And once you begin noticing this, relationships start to make a lot more sense. You start realizing that people are often revealing their own unmet emotional needs through the way they love others. I think this can create a lot more compassion if we understand this, because most people are trying. They really are. They're just loving from their own emotional blueprint. Now, I also want to talk briefly about self-love through this lens, because I think that can be an important part of this conversation too. How do you give love to yourself? What actually makes you feel cared for by you? Because I think sometimes we repeat the same patterns there too. We attempt self-care in ways that don't actually nourish us. If your love language is quality time, maybe self-love looks like uninterrupted quiet time alone. If it's acts of service, maybe self-love looks like creating a system that supports your future needs instead of exhausting yourself constantly. If it's words of affirmation, maybe it's learning to stop speaking to yourself in ways that you would never speak to someone you love. I think this framework becomes really beautiful when we stop using it as a personality label and start using it as a doorway into understanding emotional needs more deeply. Because underneath all of this, most humans are asking the same question. Do I matter to you? Do you see me? Am I safe here? Am I loved here? And the answer to those questions gets communicated in different ways for different people. Now, before we close, I also want to say this. Learning someone's love language does not mean becoming responsible for meeting every emotional need they have. I think that distinction matters. Healthy relationships still require balance, communication, boundaries, and personal responsibility. But understanding how someone experiences love can soften so many misunderstandings. It can help people stop assuming the worst about each other. It can help us become more intentional, more aware, and compassionate. And that's something the world could use a little bit more of right now. It can use a little bit more understanding and more listening, a little more willingness to realize that someone else may experience connection differently than you do. So maybe this week, pay attention. Notice how you naturally express love. Notice what makes you feel genuinely cared for. And notice the people around you too. How do they show up? How do they try? What are they quietly asking for emotionally? Because sometimes love is there in the room already. It just needs a little translation. Until next time, pay attention to the way love already moves through your life. Allow yourself to communicate your needs with honesty and softness. And remember that understanding creates connection. Take what you've heard today even further by joining my newsletter community. Each week, you'll receive journal prompts and reflections connected to the episode that are designed to guide you in bringing these conversations off the podcast and into your own journey. Let's keep going deeper together. The link is waiting for you below.